All right, let's get into our guest segments. The outsourcing industry in the country is alive and growing at unprecedented levels. At least that's according to consultancy Outsource Accelerator. To talk us through this, we have Outsource Accelerator founder and CEO Derek Gallimore. Let's get to know him first in this short video.
Derek Gallimore is the founder and CEO of Outsource Accelerator, a consultancy job marketplace for the BPO industry. Gallimore is now based in Manila, which is considered as one of the top outsourcing places in the world.
Good setup right there. Good morning, Derek. Thanks for joining us on the show today.
Hi, Regina. Thanks for having me.
I'm going to get right into it. We don't have a lot of time and there's so much to get to parse through. I wanted to start by saying that I saw your recent report saying that the Philippine outsourcing industry generated $32.4 billion in revenues for 2022. That's smashed all expectations. What's behind this growth story?
The outsourcing industry is really reaching, a crescendo. It's a perfect storm at the moment. Obviously, the world is entering into sort of recessionary times. Recently, we had COVID, which forced a lot of people to really reckon with remote work. And of course, we've had the Great Resignation, and a lot of the workers are requesting to go remote. So all of these sort of factors are encouraging businesses overseas to explore offshore employment. And the value proposition of offshore employment is just so great that we are just seeing sustained growth of CAGRs of around sort of 8, 9, 10%. And this is showing no signs of slowing down.
You talked about value proposition. When you say value proposition, are we just talking cost efficiency here? Is that the only value that the countries like the Philippines brings to the table?
Look,
meaning to say cheaper workforce, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's a significant talking point, and I think that attracts the initial interest. But we have to remind people it's not just about price, of course, it's about value. And with that is about quality, of course. And that's why the Philippines is one of the market leaders, because it's not just about cheap staffing. It is about 30 years of executive experience in the outsourcing industry and adding value to business processes. And of course, on top of that, there's also access to abundant talent. It's not just about the staffing. It's the fact that you can now access a global work pool of nearly 8 billion people around the world instead of just employing locally.
Right. And this success that we're seeing across the board for outsourcing, is that across industries, across regions in the Philippines, and across the different pillars, for instance, voice, non-voice, KPO? Is that all across the board, or it's concentrated around particular verticals or regions?
No, we're seeing it everywhere. The more traditional part of the industry, which of course is the voice and call centers with the big enterprise clients, they seem to have sustained growth, despite people saying it was a sunset industry some years ago. The new entrant to the market is really the new next-gen BPOs, as I call them, which are catering to the small and medium-sized businesses of the West. And that market is going through explosive growth. I believe that there's about 40 million new jobs that could come offshore over the next sort of 10 to 20 years, because the SME market is starting to realize the opportunity of offshore staffing, and that they're realizing that it is accessible to them also, not just the big enterprises.
Right. And that's really fascinating, because you also recently launched a new an index. You call it Time Doctor OA500. It's what you call the first objective index of the world's top 500 outsourcing firms. And what jumped out at me from that report is really that 84% of the companies here in your study are SMEs. So you're talking 40 million jobs over the next few years. Where are they coming from? Who are these SMEs?
Well, I mean, in the Top Dr. OA500, they are actually the outsourcing firms. When I refer to the SME clients, that's more the small and medium-sized businesses in the US, whether it's plumbers or bakers or accounting firms or architect firms. All of those are realizing that they can offshore And the big call centers like the Teleperformance and Accenture, they don't cater to those SMEs. It's more of the next gen BPOs, and to confuse it somewhat, the SMEs of the BPO industry that actually cater to the SMEs as the clients. And this part of the industry is just exploding because, very quickly, if you just look at the enterprise market overseas, 99% of those companies already outsource. So there is very little growth to be had, whereas 0.5% of small and medium-sized businesses in the West currently offshore. So that is the blue ocean. That is the growth potential.
Doesn't it kind of go against what countries like, for instance, the US are trying to do now, which is bring back jobs to America? I mean, President Joe Biden has made that one of his, campaign rallying points, if you would, and the drive there being to try to bring back some of these jobs that they've offshored in recent years to America. Does that not play into this at all?
No, I think the force of globalization will outstand sort of peaks and troughs in terms of political upset. And of course, we're going through the sort of China thing at the moment, and people are looking for supply chain security. And so things are being repatriated back to each country. But I think the forces of globalization cannot really be resisted in that we are becoming increasingly globalized. And for 30 to 50 years, everyone in America now is driving an Asian car. The computers are made in Asia. Everything is made offshore. They're wearing Italian shoes and the shirts are made in Turkey. We live in a truly globalized economy. And the last bastion of that globalization was staffing, because you could always import goods for a long time, but you couldn't really have that exchange of professional services until the internet came along. But now, of course, the internet is here, and it means that people can work and contribute economically from wherever they're sitting. So that is a major sea change, and that will see huge shifts in employment trends.
Right. And exactly as you said at the start, which is that it's a confluence of factors, right? Now you've also got work from home becoming mainstream, right? Literally, we are all sitting in our homes and able to communicate and work with each other and collaborate. I wanted you to, if you could, just talk me a little bit more through these next gen SMEs that you brought up. What industries are they from? Where in the world are they from? And are they looking at the Philippines or Asia in general? And are we competing with other countries here?
For the outsourcing firms, you mean? They are, look, the Philippines is prolific in terms of its outsourcing supply. I am biased, of course. I've been living here 9 years. I believe Philippines is the best destination for outsourcing services, bar none. And there are a lot of attempts of new entrants into the market. Every emerging market really wants to enter the outsourcing space because it is an incredible economic driver. And we have regular conversations, with Kenya and Ethiopia and Jordan and Uzbekistan and Fiji, all, Vietnam's obviously in vogue at the moment, Colombia, the Balkans. So all of these countries are trying to get into outsourcing. So, of course, it's up to the Philippines to remain competitive and instill their position as one of the market leaders. And I really believe the Philippines has what it takes to lead this industry.
That's a good point. Are we still competitive? I mean, I know that the trade industries trade groups like IBPAP have been, doing a lot in terms of marketing the country. And PEZA is also, rolling out the red carpet to investors. But you also correctly pointed out that competition is getting stiffer. So the question there is, are we doing enough to if not get a bigger share of the market, then at least protect our part of the pie?
Yeah, look, no country, no business can ever rest on laurels. It is a highly competitive market, and hopefully that will keep everyone, on their toes. it is true that you've got to educate the masses. You've got to get the skills into the workforce. But these are, they're pressures that every market is facing. Up until a few months ago, there was a shortage of good staff everywhere in the world. There's generally a staffing shortage, whether it's tech people, whether it's just sort of workers in Starbucks. So it's up to the Philippines to remain competitive and continually upskill their workforce. And that's happening. It's never fast enough, but I would suggest that that's consistent with any hot market.
And upskilling, that sets us up perfectly for my next question. We have to talk AI, of course, artificial intelligence. I mean, just last night, the company known as OpenAI released a new version of its ChatGPT software, and that's the one that's been making headlines recently, right? There's a bit of an AI arms race right now, if headlines are to be believed. Let's start with that. How do you think the outsourcing industry should respond to all of this?
It's got to embrace the tools. You can't sort of deny it. You've got to embrace the tools. And for the short term, at least, it will be humans building these tools and humans managing and directing these tools. So, I see no threat in the short to medium term. AI could completely change the rules of the game in terms of what it means to work and to employ and to generate things. If that happens, it happens universally across the world, across the entire workforce. So it won't just impact outsourcing. It won't just impact the Philippines. This will be a global, universal issue. The call centers are slightly, at risk if they're doing high repetition, low value tasks. And so that is, again, an incentive for the industry to upskill and to go up the value ladder into the sort of KPOs and staff augmentation instead of these sort of, mass production kind of facilities.
What are some of these high repetition, low value tasks?
A lot of it I would suggest is voice, but it's also like call center functions. So whether it's customer service, whether it's AR, PR, payroll, all of these things that involve a lot of people doing the same function on a repetitive nature. And it won't suddenly be gone, but you just find that every month or every year there are operational efficiencies that are made through tools, through automation, and it might reduce the work required by 1%, 2%, and that just cumulatively erodes the work that needs to be done. But there is also a strong argument as AI comes along and as we get increasingly sophisticated, there will be even more sophisticated problems that we need to deal with. So, it just sort of keeps on unraveling as we go. I have no immediate concern, to be honest.
And so the trick really is to start to migrate the workforce to more high value added work, which the industry groups have been talking about for a number of years now. I remember even before the pandemic, but now AI is actually here. We're not talking about the advent of, we're talking about it's happening right now. What would that look like for us to migrate the workforce to more high value added tasks? Well, what does that entail? Is that what they call KPO? Is that data management, data analysis? Well, what is it?
It's already happened. For the last 20, 30 years, the industry has been upskilling. And to use a simple analogy, when they first outsourced manufacture to China, they were sort of cheap and relatively incompetent. But now, 20 or 30 years later, they are building the world's best technology in the most advanced factories. And America cannot even compete with that. And now America's realizing, oh my gosh, these people are far too sophisticated for us. We need to get back some of that skill. And with, unbeknownst to the Philippines, that's actually happening here. It's just that it's with professional services and functions as opposed to physical manufacturing. And so what you have today compared to 20 years ago is vastly different in the outsourcing industry. The staff are highly sophisticated. They're doing increasingly sophisticated functions within businesses. And then also they spread within a business. You know, it's no longer just customer service, but it's every function within a business. And you also see with the next gen BPOs, it's more of a staff augmentation. So you have staff in the Philippines working side by side, shoulder to shoulder with staff in the US, just like normal employment. And that is where the true value is for the Philippines. And in those kind of roles, you get accountants, architects, doctors, content writers, web designers, developers, anything like that. All of that is being done now in the Philippines, working shoulder to shoulder with US and UK and Canadian businesses.
Derek, that's an interesting concept. Staff augmentation. You gave some examples, for instance, accountants and architects working together, but what is the nature of the work there? What does that actually look like in practice? What do they work on together?
Yeah, it's the modern businesses today, 99% of the work is done in front of a computer. And so any of that work does not then need to be done in Silicon Valley or wherever that company originates. A lot of the work as well can be done asynchronously. So, whether you're building a website or developing, code or writing content or, doing the books, all of that can be done remotely. Whether it's sort of a group of 20 people sitting in Silicon Valley working remotely, they're now realizing actually half of our team or maybe all of our team could be sitting in the Philippines doing it. And they do it to, the same caliber. And so it's really, that is the true movement here. It is the narrative is more about global employment. And it's just hiring the best people at the best quality at the best price, regardless of where they're sitting. So a New York company, instead of spending $20,000 a month on whatever role they're looking to hire, they can say, look, we're going to explore in the Philippines for $4,000 or $5,000 a role. It's an excellent deal for that New York company, and it's an excellent deal for the Philippine workforce. And you're just seeing that flooding in droves.
Final thoughts on AI, Derek. I gather you've already said you're not that worried short term, long term. It's something that we should be looking at in terms of augmenting the capabilities of the workforce here. What else is there to consider when it comes to AI and how it could potentially disrupt the industry?
I think in the short term, harness the fire, like use those tools and incorporate them into your processes, because then you're providing better value add for the clients. And don't be afraid of them, embrace them. I think long term, if we reach a sort of level of like general intelligence, then it will, sort of gravity will be dissolved, cancer will be solved. And it really changes what it means to live on the planet if there is super intelligence. So, I can't answer for that. Maybe we'll all just go and sit on the beach and drink pina coladas. But, in the short term, embrace the tools and embrace the technology.
Isn't that the dream? Fantastic insights. Thank you so much, Derek Gallimore, founder and CEO of Outsource Accelerator. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks.